What if everything you've been taught about good and evil is wrong? What if the narrative that shaped our understanding of God and Satan is not as clear-cut as it seems? Welcome to today's video, where we dive into the forbidden knowledge that has been kept hidden for centuries. We'll explore the idea that Satan was not the evil being he's been portrayed to be, and question whether the God of the Bible is as infallible as we've been told. Stay tuned, because this perspective will challenge everything you think you know about theology, morality, and truth. For centuries, we've been told a story, a compelling narrative that shapes our understanding of morality, justice, and divinity. But what if that story isn't as straightforward as we've been led to believe? What if the character we've been taught to fear the most, the one we call Satan, isn't the villain of the story after all? And what if the God you've worshipped isn't as honest as you think? In the narrative we've inherited, Satan is painted as the ultimate deceiver, the embodiment of evil, the one who led humanity astray. Yet, when you actually dig into the Bible, the lines between good and evil, truth and lies start to blur. Take the Garden of Eden, the beginning of humanity's so-called fall. The story goes like this. God warns Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, warning, "For on the day you eat of it, you will surely die." Then, along comes the serpent, often equated with Satan, who offers a different perspective. "You will not surely die. Your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Eve eats the fruit. Adam eats the fruit. Their eyes are opened. And here's the kicker, they don't drop dead. Stop and think about that. Who lied? Who told the truth? God said they would die. The serpent said they wouldn't. And the serpent was right. Adam and Eve didn't die on the spot. Instead, they gained something far more profound: knowledge, awareness. They saw the world in a new way. For this, humanity was cursed. Does that sound like the act of a benevolent creator? Or the reaction of someone afraid of humanity becoming too much like them? Let's take this deeper. In the book of Job, Satan doesn't skulk in shadows, whispering lies. He approaches God directly. He negotiates. And here's the twist. God grants him permission. Yes, permission to test Job's faith through unimaginable suffering. So who is Satan really? Is he the deceiver we've been warned about? Or is he the one daring to ask the uncomfortable questions? And who is God in this story, the protector of humanity? Or a being whose motives deserve a closer look? Unimaginable suffering. This isn't the devil of horror movies, some chaotic figure wreaking havoc for the sake of it. This is Satan as an agent of God, fulfilling a divine purpose. But if Satan is inherently evil, why does God work with him? That's not a rhetorical question. It's a challenge to think critically about what you've been taught. Now, let's consider the books you've likely never heard of, texts like the Book of Enoch. These banned books offer a completely different view of the spiritual realm. They describe divine beings who rebelled against a tyrannical order, not out of malice, but in pursuit of freedom and justice. Why were these books excluded from the Bible? Could it be that they told a story that didn't fit the narrative of control and obedience that organized religion relies on? It's tempting to dismiss these ideas as heretical or blasphemous. But remember, history is written by the victors. The institutions that decided which texts were sacred and which stories would be buried weren't neutral. They had agendas, power, control, and dominance. The real question isn't whether Satan is evil. The real question is whether you're willing to challenge everything you've been told about him, about God, and about the nature of truth itself. Think again. Forget the horns, the tail, and the pitchfork. The Satan of ancient scripture is a far cry from the cartoonish villain painted by centuries of religious doctrine and Hollywood tropes. In the Hebrew Bible, the cornerstone of Judeo-Christian theology, Satan isn't some rogue agent of chaos. Instead, he's part of the divine court, a tester, an accuser, a necessary counterbalance in the cosmic order. Let's start with the original Hebrew term, Satan. It doesn't mean prince of darkness or evil incarnate. It translates to the accuser or the adversary. Picture a courtroom prosecutor, someone whose role is to challenge, to question, to push boundaries. This is exactly how Satan is portrayed in the book of Job. He's not a rebel scheming to destroy humanity. He's a divine agent doing his job. In fact, it's God who suggests Job as a subject for testing. This wasn't some underhanded betrayal. It was a deliberate, sanctioned collaboration. What's fascinating is how the Bible's depiction of Satan evolves over time. In earlier texts, he's not an independent force of evil, but a member of the heavenly council, a part of God's team. Fast forward to later writings, and the story shifts. Satan begins to take on the role of an adversary not just to individuals, but to God's entire plan. This evolution raises questions about how our understanding of good and evil, loyalty and rebellion has been shaped not by the text alone, but by centuries of interpretation. This evolution aligns with a pivotal moment in history, the Jewish exile in Babylon. During this time, Jewish theology encountered Zoroastrianism, a religion that introduced the concept of a cosmic struggle between good and evil. This dualistic worldview began to seep into Jewish thought, reshaping the role of Satan. By the New Testament, this transformation is complete. In books like Revelation, Satan has become a full-blown antagonist, waging war against God and humanity. But here's the kicker: this wasn't how he was originally portrayed. The ancient Hebrews didn't see Satan as the ultimate enemy. This darkened interpretation was a reinterpretation, one influenced by external cultures and evolving religious narratives. Let's circle back to the Garden of Eden, but this time with a sharper lens. When the serpent, often equated with Satan, entices Eve to eat the forbidden fruit, he doesn't lie. His offer is knowledge, the kind that opens eyes and shatters ignorance. And what does God do in response? He punishes humanity for seeking enlightenment. Pause and consider this dynamic. One offers truth. The other enforces punishment for pursuing it. What does that tell us about the story we've been told? The serpent's role in the garden aligns more with a Satan from the book of Job, a challenger, a disruptor of the status quo. But why would such a role exist within a divine framework? Because without challenge, there's no growth. Without questions, there are no answers. This is the essence of Satan's role in these early texts. He isn't evil, he's essential. Now, consider how early Christians reshaped this narrative. By casting Satan as the ultimate enemy, they crafted a story of eternal damnation and salvation. With Satan as the clear antagonist, they created a perfect other for people to rally against. The formula was simple but effective. Fear Satan, follow God, obey the church. This binary thinking, good versus evil, heaven versus hell, has dominated for centuries. But it wasn't always this way. The Bible's own texts reveal a far more nuanced figure. Satan, in his earliest forms, wasn't about chaos or destruction. He was about questioning authority, exposing hypocrisy, and forcing accountability. These aren't traits of a villain. They're traits of a provocateur, a catalyst for truth, and perhaps a misunderstood player in the grand story of humanity's spiritual journey. Revolutionary. If that word unsettles you, good. It should. This isn't about comfort. It's about truth. And the deeper we go, the more the cracks in the familiar narrative begin to show. For generations, the story has been simple. God is truth, and Satan is lies. But when you examine the Bible closely, the waters become murky. There are moments when God's actions and words raise profound questions about divine honesty and fairness. Take the story of the Exodus. God sends Moses to free the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, a noble cause, right? But then, time and time again, God hardens Pharaoh's heart. Even when Pharaoh seems ready to let the Israelites go, God steps in and changes the game. Why? To create an excuse for unleashing a series of devastating plagues. These weren't random punishments. They were calculated moves, turning Egypt into a proving ground for divine power. And it doesn't stop there. Look at Ezekiel 14:9. If a prophet is deceived into uttering a prophecy, it is I, the Lord, who have deceived that prophet. That's not a misinterpretation. It's not an ambiguous translation. It's right there in the text. The deception, according to the scripture, comes directly from God. If lying is the hallmark of evil, how do we reconcile this? These aren't the actions of a being who operates above scrutiny. These are questions that demand exploration and answers. Deceit. These aren't the actions of an infallible being operating above reproach. They're the tactics of someone manipulating outcomes to serve a greater purpose. Take 2 Thessalonians 2:11, for example. The New Testament reinforces this unsettling theme. God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe a lie. Let that sink in. This isn't Satan at work. This is God. It's not about temptation or testing. It's about orchestrating falsehoods to lead people astray. This directly challenges the narrative of a God who is purely just and wholly truthful. And then there's the story of Abraham and Isaac, a tale taught as a cornerstone of faith. God commands Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac as a test of loyalty. At the last moment, God intervenes, providing a ram for the sacrifice instead. But pause for a moment and consider the weight of that command. What does it represent? Psychological manipulation of the highest order. The trauma inflicted on Abraham and Isaac isn't erased by the last-minute reprieve. This wasn't about truth or justice. It was about obedience and control. God's command wasn't honest. It was a ruse to see how far Abraham would go. These aren't obscure stories buried in forgotten texts. They're front and center in the Bible stories taught in Sunday schools and echoed in sermons. Yet, the glaring contradictions within them are rarely questioned. And that silence? It's where the real questions begin, rarely addressed. Why? Because these stories don't fit the image of a perfect, benevolent deity. Instead, they reveal a side of God that is complex, calculated, and at times unsettling. Now, compare that to the serpent in Genesis. The serpent doesn't manipulate it, offers information. It doesn't force Eve's hand, it gives her a choice. That's not coercion, that's agency. And yet, the serpent is demonized while God's calculated deceptions are glossed over or justified. This isn't about turning God into a villain or elevating Satan to sainthood. It's about recognizing that the narrative isn't as black and white as we've been led to believe. These stories aren't just ancient myths, they're frameworks for understanding power, authority, and morality. They demand scrutiny because for thousands of years, they've shaped how humanity views truth, justice, and the divine. Enter Billy Carson, a name that sends shockwaves through traditional thinking. His deep dives into ancient texts and cosmic theories challenge the conventional story like no one else. His perspective isn't just provocative, it's a direct challenge to everything you think you know. Mainstream religion teaches us a simple story. God is ultimate good, and Satan is pure evil. But what happens when you flip that narrative? Billy Carson does just that, turning centuries-old beliefs on their head in ways that are both shocking and grounded in meticulous research. He starts by challenging the very foundation of religious doctrine, the assumption that God is infallibly good and Satan is the embodiment of evil. Carson argues that this dichotomy wasn't ordained by divine decree, it was constructed by humans seeking control. The Bible, as he points out, is a collection of texts written, edited, and curated by men, each with their own political and social agendas. The narrative of God as the ultimate good and Satan as ultimate evil serves a clear purpose: to instill fear, establish authority, and ensure obedience. One of Carson's most striking observations is the comparison between God's characteristics in the Old Testament and traits commonly associated with authoritarian rule. The God described in these texts demands absolute obedience, punishes dissent with extreme measures, and even admits to using deception when it serves divine purposes. What makes Carson's argument so compelling is his reliance on Scripture itself. He doesn't just make bold claims, he backs them up with direct references to the Bible, forcing readers and listeners to confront the uncomfortable contradictions within these sacred texts. Carson's work isn't just provocative. It's a call to question everything we think we know about the dichotomy of good and evil, and to reevaluate the stories that have shaped human belief for millennia. Billy Carson draws attention to verses where God deliberately causes confusion or even sends lying spirits to achieve a desired outcome, as seen in 1 Kings 22:23. But Carson doesn't stop there. He goes even further by reframing the serpent in the Garden of Eden, often equated with Satan, not as a deceiver, but as a liberator. According to Carson, the serpent offers knowledge, opening the eyes of Adam and Eve. This act wasn't an act of rebellion against divine will, Carson argues, but rather a challenge to blind obedience. The serpent didn't coerce Eve. It presented information, giving her the agency to make her own choice. In Carson's view, this offering of knowledge aligns more with enlightenment than with evil. Carson takes it even deeper, suggesting that the concept of God in the Bible might not always refer to the same being. He points to ancient texts like the Enuma Elish, the Sumerian creation epic that predates the Bible by centuries. In these texts, gods aren't monolithic figures, they have individual motives, rivalries, and agendas. Carson suggests that the God of the Old Testament might represent one of these beings, one whose agenda aligns more with domination than with divine goodness. Welcome to Blessovia Science TV, where we take you on an exhilarating journey through the cosmos and unravel the mysteries of science. We are excited to offer you the opportunity to become a valued member of our ever-growing community of cosmic enthusiasts and knowledge seekers. Exclusive access to cosmic content. As a member of Blessovia Science TV, you will gain exclusive access to a treasure trove of cosmic content, including documentaries, interviews with leading scientists, space missions updates, and awe-inspiring visualizations of the universe, live Q, and sessions with experts. Your membership will grant you the chance to participate in live Q and sessions with renowned scientists, astronomers, and space explorers. Get your burning questions answered by those who push the boundaries of human knowledge. Embark on a journey that spans the cosmos and join us in unraveling the secrets of the universe. Become a Blessovia Science TV member today, and together we will reach for the stars. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and share. Don't forget to leave your comment.